Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's EAC webinar. This is Cassie Stumo. I'm the marketing specialist at EAC. We'll begin today's session with an introduction of EAC from Shannon Wilson, our account manager for all things Creo. And then our technical account manager, Bill Schlund, will present the overview of PTC's new Creo packaging. Everyone will receive a recording of the session pending any technical difficulties. So please feel free to drop questions in the chat and we'll answer them after the presentation. So Shannon, I'll pass things on to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cassie, for that introduction. For those of you who may not be as familiar with our company and what we do here, I would just like to start out today with just a quick overview of EAC and what we offer. At EAC, we are dedicated to help companies transform the way they design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We do this by offering a range of products and services, including CAD, PLM, and SLM software and desktop 3D printers. We implement the Internet of Things and augmented reality into business strategies, help with design and engineering projects, and offering training courses on topics such as Windchill, Creo, and Arbortext. EAC has over 20 years of experience in various topics in product development. We are a certified solutions provider for PTC and have been a leading PTC global service provider for 15 years. I will now hand this over to Bill, who will begin discussing the Creo packages with us today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. Well, it's not afternoon yet for most of you guys. This is Bill Schlund, and we'll be talking about the new Creo packaging. This is a real eye chart that we're starting off with here. And I'm not going to go through all of this. I just wanted to highlight that there are 5 different packages available now, T1 through T5, meaning Tier 1 through Tier 5. We'll go into each one of these in more detail. I just want to give you a little background about this. PTC got together and started this process back in 2017. Always in the past, there have been a couple different flavors, the way things were sold to customers. In the channel, they had kind of one flavor of packaging, and in the direct channel or the direct customers, PTC would have a different one. So with this advent of the 5-tier model, everybody will have the same packaging. So no matter what type of customer you are, whether you're being serviced directly by PTC or by the channel, these will be available to you. So the first one is called the Design Essentials, Tier 1, and that's just core capabilities. Tier 2 adds to that top-down design, more advanced assembly type work, and then also some prismatic machining. Tier 3 has Tier 1 and Tier 2 in it. In addition, it has some advanced surfacing, some mechanism dynamics, GD&T, and some mold design and machining. Tier 4 goes to adding to this some capabilities for outputting third-party package software files, also some more advanced type of simulation and some production machining. And finally, Tier 5 has some additional simulation capabilities, some options modeler, and some different 3D printing. So let's kind of go into each one of these individually a little bit. So Tier 1 has regular Creo Parametric, and then some other things added to it as well. So if we take a look at Creo Parametric, that's defined with these base modules inside of it, right? So, and this is the stuff that we've grown up with. So we have augmented reality for creating an augmented reality experience. Just basically send your part out to the cloud, it gets sent back, and you can call this up on your phone. We have Unite capabilities, reading in third-party data directly, SolidWorks, CATIA, NX, and Inventor. And then import data doctor, fixing imported geometry, creating drawings, creating 3D annotations, part and assembly modeling, typical capabilities there, welding, the freestyle surfacing, parametric surfacing, sheet metal, plastic part design. By that they mean the capability of doing thin wall analysis and also draft analysis on parts. Design, reuse, and automation. That's just a fancy phrase for family tables. Assembly management and performance. That would be simplified reps. Mechanism design, mechanisms, model animation, that used to be the old Pro Animate package. It's still the same. Also design for additive manufacturing. So this allows us to take our part, place it on a cell, pattern it, and get it ready for 3D printing. Also a performance advisor. This is new. This came out in Creo 4 maybe, but we'll take a quick little peek at it. This is more geared towards IT people. So the reason I'm doing this is I noticed there were a few IT people in the group. It basically monitors what's being done. It looks for kind of the stability between different softwares to make sure that you're on the right rev. The interesting thing too is it also takes a look at feature usage, so you can see which features in the system are being used the most. And that could lead towards, maybe we want to have training or additional capabilities in that particular area. So, and then finally, e-learning has been embedded in core Creo capabilities. So that's online training, tutorials, access to online help, and then also additional knowledge base. And then the light modules, right? So those are always there. So let's go back and take a look at continuing on for T1. So that's just Creo Parametric. Then we have the collaboration extension for Inventor and SolidWorks. So whenever you see the word collaboration extension, what it means is you're able to write out that particular third-party software in its native format. So when Creo 5 first came out, you couldn't do that with Inventor. And as far as I know, you can't do it yet, but I guess that's in the works. And certainly you could always write out a SolidWorks file. Again, it's not a feature-based file, but it is the topology of the geometry, sort of like an import feature. Then we have Simulation E-Lite. This is a new one. So E-Lite probably stands for Essentials Lite, but basically this has capabilities of, it's different than Simulate Lite. Remember before that would have a wizard interface to go through it, and it would just have certain types of loads and constraints and certain types of elements that you could use, and it was limited to 200 surfaces. Now, everybody going forward, when you get a seat of Design Essentials, you have the full Simulate user interface. So that means you can put in all the other types of elements that are available, beams and shells and masses and springs and rigid joints, things like that. It does linear analysis on structural analysis. It does no thermal. So that's what the E-Lite module does. Flexible modeling, again, making modifications to a geometry, whether they be parametric or non-parametric. Also, we have design exploration. So this is a nice module that allows you to, I'll just kind of click on this guy. This module allows you to go through kind of an iterative process. You can call up a part and assembly, make all kinds of changes to it, and it stores each one of those changes. Every time you got it to a point that you like, you can make a checkpoint. And you can review these different checkpoints and actually come up with a lot of different variations, different ideas, and actually use this design exploration as a design review tool, keeping everything in a single file. So you don't have to make copies of an existing part and then have to erase memory and call it the new version and all of that. This does all of that for you. And of course, it's all understood by Windchill. Piping and cabling extension has been added. So any type of piping or cabling needs will be now part of the Tier 1 base package. Rendering Studio, again, using KeyShot. Intelligent Fasteners extension. There's always been, or in the past, Fasteners Lite, which is basically the nuts and the bolts and screws and things like that. Now with the full extension, you have the capabilities also adding dowels and then making modifications to the things that are in the library. Advanced Framework has been added. So that's creating steel, could be different types of beams or channels or things like that, automatically miter cutting the intersections, just a whole library of different types of things that you can bring in for doing kind of frameworks. And then we have Legacy Data Migration Extension. A lot of you people don't know this. It's been out for quite a while. It's always been sold as an extension, as a separate thing. We'll take a quick little peek at this just because you probably don't know what it is. For instance, if you have some legacy data that you brought in from a third party, a lot of times you'll get a model, you might bring that in as STEP or IGES, or maybe if you're using the capabilities of Creo, you could just bring in a SolidWorks of that. But then what do you do with the drawings, right? We don't call those up. So you might get the drawing then in a DXF, DWG, IGES format. So what this particular module does is it takes that model, whether it be STEP or IGES or whatever format, and it merges it up into the drawing, which is basically a dumb drawing, right? DXF, DWG, and it places the views of the solid model into the drawing, lines them up, replaces the drawing views and the dumb geometry with the solid, and then also will map dimensions on. So it'll create driven dimensions on the real solid model, and then replace those basically draft dimensions that existed in the drawing. It's not an easy button click, but the capability does exist for migrating data and keeping the drawings associated with it. So before, we really couldn't do that before, other than that. Then we have the human factors extension, obviously being able to take a variety of different scales of human beings based on 50th percentile, 100th percentile, and then also human factors extension, analysis extension, which allows us to say we've got a 50 percentile Italian woman carrying a 30-pound box 50 feet. Can she do that 35 times a day? So there's all types of analysis can be done on this. This is all mostly information done and already out there, done by insurance companies, but basically it will tell you the capabilities of a person being able to do the tasks that you're asking them to do. And then MathCAD Express. So MathCAD Express allows you to do kind of the basic MathCAD capabilities, certainly mathematic-wise, except it doesn't go into linear algebra differential equations, 3D plots, and also the kind of the more advanced templates that you can use for engineering and other types of problems. But so that's all in Tier 1. So I just wanted to highlight this. This is pretty amazing what they've done. I'm going to bring in, just going to drag in another thing here. So here is the way things look right now with the essentials today. And with the T1 capabilities, what we have is all these other things being added. So we can see all these other extensions being added to it. So the base module, or base bundle, I guess I should say, that you're getting going forward has a tremendous amount of capability in it nowadays. So just kind of wanted to really quickly highlight that. So that's T1. T2 is T1 plus advanced assembly extension. All right, so now we have capability of doing copy geoms and published geoms and skeletons and process assemblies and things like that. Also is included is prismatic and multi-surface machining. So that's 3-axis milling with 4 and 5-axis positioning, all added into the T2 Tier 2 module bundle. Then Tier 3, we have all of those. In addition, we have additive manufacturing extension, which is the ability of us to do the lattice structure for 3D printing. So we can take our solid model, replace a lot of that solid mass with a lattice structure that allows us to print faster and use less material. We have ISDX, Interactive Surface Design Extension, behavioral modeling added to this, mechanism dynamics. So again, we can take into account frictions and gravity and inertia, springs and things like that. The tolerance analysis extension, which is the 1D tolerance stackup, that is by Sigmetrics software. So that's built in. Also the GD&T Advisor additionally is also from Sigmetrics. And while you're in the GD&T Advisor, it will recommend what type of GD&T to use depending on the geometry that you pick, and to make sure that it is created correctly. We also have the tool design extension. So this is for mold people. This creates the geometry that touches the plastic part. So the core and cavity halves, this also is the module that creates the parting line and then splits the mold for you. And then we have the expert mold base extension, which is a library of various mold bases that we take those cavity steels, those inserts that we created in the tool design extension, place those in the mold base extension to get a fully defined and documented mold base. And then finally, we have mold machining. This is new with Creo 5. So I'm going to just pop this up. It's from a company called ModuleWorks. They have some software for machining mold for high-speed machining. It's really good for one-off type machine. Creo manufacturing has always been very good at allowing a user to create a highly customized and optimized toolpath. And then it's really good to take that and apply it onto different variations of the part family table, variations and things like that. Well, what this is more meant to do is some high-speed machining of removing a whole lot of material really fast with a really, really easy user interface. So ModuleWorks has been out in the public, obviously, for a long time, but PTC has embedded that into the T3 extension. And then, of course, there's Creo Layout, where we can take 2D sections of a 3D assembly, add some 2D information to it, and then bring that back into 3D to create the models. So kind of a way of doing a layout in 2D as opposed to 3D. So that's the T3 extension. T4 is all of this that I've been talking about. In addition, we have the collaboration extension for CATIA and NX. Again, when we see collaboration, that means we write out native CATIA v4 and v5 files and also write out NX files. So those capabilities have been added in. We have the simulation extension, which allows us to do the analysis on structural and thermal analysis. So this is simulate structure and thermal, but the linear portions of it, right? So we can do contact, but not contact with friction. We have to use more linear type products and not large deformations. Fatigue advisor, again, if a component during its life goes through a lot of cycles of loading and unloading, fatigue can be an issue. So the fatigue advisor will take a look at that and tell you areas of the part that have potentials for failure or cracks. Then we have flow analysis. The flow analysis is computational fluid dynamics. This is by a company called Cimerix, and we'll take a quick look at that. That was also new in Creo 5, but what we can see here is the ability to do CFD on 3D assemblies, 3D parts. It works really quickly, and it almost solves real time as you're working with it, but it works a lot like surface and bounds. You give your assembly, you pick the areas you want it to shut off, and whatever area or volume is left, it says, okay, that's the fluid that's flowing through here. Is it air? Is it liquid? How fast is it moving? It can also take into account not only the flow characteristics, but then the heat transfer characteristics as well. Then we have the GDT Advisor Plus. So this is new as well. So we had the GD&T Advisor earlier, and what that meant is that we could, while we're working with the GD&T Advisor and we're creating GD&T, it is making sure that we're creating them correctly. The GD&T Advisor Plus means that if we have existing GD&T that was made just with regular Creo capabilities, it can kind of go and spell check those and make sure that they should be correct and recommend courses of action to make them correct and to the standards. Then we have production machining added to this. Production machining is the capability of doing not only in addition to the 3-axis milling that we talked about earlier, it adds in 2- and 4-axis turning, also 2- to 4-axis wire EDM. So production machining extension is added to the tier 4. Then we have sheet metal manufacturing extension. So this allows us to flatten out, well, we can take the flattened out sheet metal part, place it on a large workpiece, it will nest it, make sure that you optimize the amount of material that you have there, and then create the tool paths on there, whether it's laser, plasma, or whatever, to create or cut out those particular components. And then we have MathCAD. So before we had talked about MathCAD Lite, now we have just the regular MathCAD, right? So this includes all the capabilities of MathCAD with the 3D plotting and linear diffie-q, and also using the different templates for engineering and any other templates that are in the library for higher order type of simulations and mathematical analyses. So now we come to T5, right? I call this the MOAB, the mother of all bundles. PTC has never had anything like this before, right? Tier 4 was always the best, and that was like engineering 4 for the direct guys and team plus whatever for the channel guys. But what this has in it is everything that we've talked about so far. In addition, it has advanced simulation. So again, that gives us the capabilities. We'll take a peek at this because this gives us a nice listing of the different types of simulation that we have. But Simulate Lite, remember we use that web or the really wizard interface to do that, and it's limited as far as the type of loads and constraints that you have. Then this in tier T1, 2, and 3, we have certainly those capabilities, but we have the original user interface that we have with Simulate, so we don't have this wizard-driven thing. And but it only does linear, right? And it doesn't do thermal. And then we have in T4, we saw the full version of Mechanica, but again, not including the thermal stuff. And then the full-blown version does all the capabilities that Simulate Advanced has, right? So all the nonlinear thermal, it has dynamic pre-stress, large deformations, non-isotropic type materials, all that type of stuff, all is in the T5. In addition, we have complete machining, all right? So that's everything that PTC has under the machining world, but that is all the capabilities. So that was the 3-axis milling, it was 2 and 4-axis turning wire EDM. In addition, full 2.5 to 5-axis milling, and just all the capabilities that the PTC has in machining. Then we have Flow Analysis Plus. So we talked about the CFD before. Let's take a quick look at this because I've broken this down as well. In the T4, we saw the flow analysis package. So that allows us to simulate flow, heat transfer, turbulence, things like that. The Plus version in the MOAB has all those capabilities in addition to particle, radiation, species, and moving and sliding meshes. So like if you have an impeller or something turning. So it does all of that. So let's pop back. And then we have Options Modeler. So that's now part of the T5. Again, the Options Modeler allows us to create a lot of variations of a part based on rules and based on, it kind of uses family tables and interchange groups capabilities. And we basically check off the different options that we want, and it creates that assembly for us. So it's sort of like an assembly generator, and it gives you a nice user interface for setting that up. So that's what the Options Modeler does. Then we have topology optimization. I'm going to hit on this one a little bit because it's new in Creo 5. But what topology optimization does, and we've been able to do geometry optimization before, and that was ever since, you know, they bought Mechanica back in, you know, 96 or whatever. But what that would allow you to do is parametric optimization, right? And that's what behavioral modeling would do and things like that. It would move dimensions around to optimize your geometry. So it'd make radiuses bigger, move holes around, reduce surface areas, things like that. What this particular product does is it's like taking a chisel or a Dremel tool to your part. It removes the material, again, taking into account structural considerations, so that this part, you know, has these type of forces in it, acting on it, and it's held in this particular way. Remove as much material as you can and still have it be able to withstand those forces and the way that it's held and constrained within the rules that we set. So what it does is it just, as you can see here, it takes basically this block part, hogs out a bunch of material. These are all non-parametric edits, right? It's just removing material. It puts a mesh on there and it just starts removing, and it ends up giving you something very similar to an STL file. And that's what a lot of third-party companies do, is they give you this really nasty, you know, tessellated file, and they say, okay, now make a part out of it, which is really hard to do. You know, you start stretching surfaces, drawing curves, doing all that type of stuff. What this module does is then takes all that information and uses the capabilities of the freestyle surface and creates all these areas that have been removed as freestyle surfaces. We can easily edit and modify those, but it does create a genuine solid, all smoothed out and ready to go, and not some kind of nasty tessellated beast that you're going to have to spend a lot of hours trying to make into a real part. So really cool tool. And then finally, we have Additive Manufacturing Extension Plus. So we talked about additive manufacturing again. That's the ability to do the 3D printing, but with the plus, again, with Creo 5, we started working with a company called Materialize. Not only do they do 3D printing of plastic components, but with the plus version of this, they also do metal 3D printing, right? Which really makes it unique. Again, there's some different characteristics to printing 3D with metal as opposed to plastics, and the software has built-in capabilities for doing that as far as building supports and be able to independently edit those supports because 3D printing in metal has different capabilities and different things to look out for. So here we have kind of the free version, which is just creating the STL files and putting those in the workplace and patterning those, to the T3 and T4, which for the 3D printing has the capabilities of doing certainly the nesting we were talking about, but also creating the lattice structure, right? Removing lots of solid material and replacing that with a lattice structure. And it still can go to materialized printers, but to the plastic printers. And then with the T5, that allows us to print to the metal printers using Materialize. So that's T5. So those are the 5 main modules or bundles that are going to be existing going forward and exist right now. So another thing that I want to talk about is additional extensions, because you'll say, well, do I just have to buy these bundles? And no, you don't. You can buy a particular bundle and then add on to it. So these are the other extensions. Again, these are a lot of these will look familiar to you, but we'll highlight some of them that you might not be familiar with. So we have the Insight extension, all right? So this is new. This is the ability to take sensors and place those in a Mechanica model. These sensors can actually receive information from the cloud for real-time loading or real-time thermal considerations. So it's actually looking at a real part in the field, taking information from that and applying it to our 3D model and seeing how this part would behave in the real field, in the real world. So really kind of an interesting concept. There's also the augmented reality design share. So this is a little bit different than what I talked about really at the beginning, which is you can just send your model up into the cloud and it will send you back a file that you can call up on your phone and look at, spin around and things like that. This allows you to make an interface with that. So we'll click on it real quickly here, take a peek. But what it allows us to do is create the experience of the augmented reality where we can create different buttons for zooming in, zooming out, explode, and then publishing that out ourselves so that we can distribute that as we see fit. And then we have Creo Direct, again, the non-parametric version of Creo. We have Creo Sketch, which is the 2D sketching capability, a lot like MS Paint. We have the Render Studio. So we've talked about that. That's the keyshot capability. Here it's also available as an app too. So you can have it connected to Creo Session, or you can just have it as a standalone app. And basically as a standalone app, you call it up. It's kind of like Keyshot. And then you just say, where's the model? Say File, Open, and then you can do your rendering on that model that you retrieve. We have REX, which is the reverse engineering extension. Again, that's taking point cloud data and creating geometry around that. Creo Schematics, that's the full-blown version of schematics. One of the things in the light version is Creo Schematics Lite is now included with every seat, which is new, unique. But Creo Schematics, the heavier version, that allows you to do kind of a shared library and unlimited number of sheets and things like that. HMX, Harness Manufacturing Extension. So there's a couple flavors of that, but again, they're based on how many wires you need to flatten and how many connectors you have. So we can click on this briefly just to show that. There's a light version that everybody gets, up to 5 connectors and 50 wires. Again, it'll automatically flatten out a harness that is created with PCX. Again, everybody has PCX now going forward, as you could see, as we talked about in T1. Then there's a standard version and an advanced version, again, based on how many wires and connectors you want to do, and then some other capabilities for documentation. And then there's CCX. So This is kind of new. It's not new, it's been out for a while, but not a lot of people have been exposed to it. And what this does is allows you to do kind of analysis of parts. There's really two ways that we can have issues with electrical components, and that could be creepage, where we have electric current going between two components, but it kind of follows the surface. So it's not supposed to be doing that. And then the other one is arcing, right? That's kind of clearance. It's going from point A to point B. It's kind of arcing across. So what this software does is looks at the proximity of certain parts to each other and the type of material that they are, and will show you areas where the distance between them is maybe too small, where you could have either a creepage or a clearance issue as far as electrical concerns, and I'll highlight those for you. So interesting package. It's been out, like I said, for a while, but not too many people really know about it. Then there's the Creo Flow Analysis Premium. And again, remember, there are different flavors of that. T4 has the capabilities for doing flow, heat transfer, turbulence, and particles. T5 has all of these. And then the premium version, which we're talking about right now, will take into account cavitation, multi-phase, multi-component dynamics. Once we start getting into this area, really the T5 and the premium versions, this is where your the first one, T4, is meant for the proletariat, right? The average engineer. Really simple to use, easy to run and get results from. As you work your way up the ladder here, you need more and more knowledge about computational fluid dynamics, the different things that you should be concerned with, and the ways of interpreting the results that you're getting. So by the time you get to the end here, you're pretty much considered in your company a CFD guy, as opposed to just a general engineer over here in the regular Creo Flow Analysis, where you can just run a real quick one and get some ideas about how it's behaving. Then we have CMA, which is the mold analysis package. That came out in, I think, Creo 3, and it was by a company called MoldX. But again, this does our 3D mold shot analysis. So it does shrinkage, it does a variety of different types of quality analysis on the part, and also takes into account, it has a huge library of different types of materials that you could use with it. So we'll go back, take a look at PDX, Progressive Die Extension, again, creating your die layout for progressive die manufacturing. Then we have Creo Topology Optimization Plus. So we saw the topology optimization before. The plus version is over here, and this allows you, when you're taking into fabrication accounts, okay, it still removes material, but it will also take into account that this part is maybe created with filling, or has radial spokes, kind of like blow molding or rotational molding or something like that. So it takes into some other considerations of how the part is made when it's starting to remove material. And then finally, we have the computer-aided verification, which is CMM, right? So that's been around since, I think, Rev 17, but allows you to do coordinate measuring, output DEMIS, and create coordinate measuring capabilities so that you can compare the theoretical Creo part to the real world manufactured part. So with that, I've kind of covered all of the modules, remember, T1 through T5, and then these are all the additional extensions that we can add to those. So with that, we're going to kind of roll it back to Cassie, and she wants to talk a little bit about some specials we have.
Actually, we'll be turning it over to Shannon to talk about this a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up.
And no problem. All right, thanks, Bill, and thanks everyone for taking the time out of the day to attend. I did also want to mention just 2 promotions we are currently running through the end of the year. Right now, you can get all seats of Creo, buy one, get one half off. This is definitely a great deal if you are in need of any additional licenses at this time. I did also want to mention we have a reactivation promotion available if you have any licenses that are currently off of support. This offer will be going away starting in 2019. If you're interested in learning more about either of these offers, please reach out for more information. I will now open it up if we have any questions.
All right, I actually don't see any questions in the queue. Bill, is there anything else you wanted to go over before we wrap it up today?
I'll throw one thing out there. The T2 that I talked about now has included with it PDM Essentials, right? Comes automatically included with it. So anyone buying T2 automatically gets a seat of PDM Essentials, which they've never really bundled in that before. So just to kind of add to it, remember how I talked about T1, had all these other modules added to it. T2 has PDM Essentials. So that's just one thing I wanted to bring up as well. You can also attach certainly PDM link and project link and all those things to the existing modules for an additional cost, obviously. But no, that's probably it. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill, for the presentation, and thank you, Shannon, for pointing out that we do have that promotion going on. So thanks everyone for joining us on today's webinar on PTC's new Creo packaging. Everyone will receive the replay of the webinar shortly, so please reach out to Shannon or Jenny if you have any questions or would like to take advantage of that limited time offer for the buy one, get one half off deal. You can find our upcoming webinars on eacpds.com/events. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.